What I have here, everyone, is a very interesting tent from a company known as OneTigris. This happens to be a new and improved version of one of the best tents that I've tested out in years. The tent that I'm talking about is the Stella. If you're familiar with the OG Stella, I'm sure you're saying to yourself, wait a second, that's a 4th season tent. In other words, a tent that was designed for cold weather camping. The new version has been redesigned so it can be used in a far greater range of conditions. Everyone, welcome to this episode of the TOGR Review. I hope you all are doing well. My name is Luke, and in this episode, we will be taking a look at the brand new redesigned Stella tent from OneTigris. I am very excited for this one. Starting here with the storage bag, you have a grab pull down at the bottom and a draw pull up here at the top. We do have the name of the product on the bag itself, which is huge. It took a few years, but I was finally able to convince the company to label their products. It does make a difference. It does help a lot. We have 2 corded compression straps, which are garbage. We have tent stakes and guy lines. The tent pole set. We have the fly. And we also have the inner. We have 4 high quality guy lines. And we have 10 tent stakes. Here we have the main tent pole and the spreader bar. So there are 2 poles with this tent. We have the inner setup. Speaking of the setup process, it's very simple, very much like every other tent out on the market. You do the X pole system over the top, clip it on, spreader bar, and you're good to go. You could then move to the fly. Comparing this to the original version, there are 2 things that should stand out to you if you're familiar with that tent. First, the colors are different. The previous version was black and white. Black fly, white inner. This version has a green fly, green accents, and also a yellow inner. You could argue that this is brown. I'm going to say it's yellow, green and yellow. The next thing that you will notice concerning this tent, we finally have mesh on the doors. That's right, everyone. With this door, you can see that we have mesh over the top, and then we have the fabric panel. You can roll back that fabric panel if you want more airflow inside of this tent. On the other side, we have another door with the same features. Another huge difference that may not be jumping out to you immediately is size. For the first time, this tent is available in 2 sizes, a 1-person and also a 2-person. This is the 1-person version. You may be saying, Luke, where's the 2-person version? I want to see that. Don't worry, I will have a video concerning it coming up very soon. Today we're starting with the 1-person version. With this tent here, I can tell you all, this is quite a bit wider than your average 1-person tent. I'm impressed with how much space there is inside of this. Speaking of which, let's go in there. Again, we have the mesh panel over the door. So we have the mesh panel here, and we have the fabric panel here. So let's say it's cold, it's wintertime. You can have this sealed up. It's going to hold in some heat. It's going to block some breeze. Let's say that you're out in the summertime. You're going to roll this up. You're going to have the mesh zipped up to keep the bugs out, and you're going to have some good airflow inside of this tent from this side and also from the other side. The original version of this tent did not have a mesh panel here at the door. On the inside of this tent, we have 4 mesh pockets. We have 1 hook for hanging, and we have multiple loops so that you can hang up some sort of gear caddy or a drying line. Additionally, we have a bathtub floor with tape seams. Now everyone, let's measure this tent. Starting with height, 40 inches, which is 3 feet 4 inches. Now width, 34 inches wide, which is 2 feet 10 inches. Now length, realistically, 76 inches, which is 6 feet 4 inches. So if you're 6'4" and under, this will work for you. Another big difference for this tent is the way that the fly connects to the body. Previously, you had these little hooks that clipped on down in the corners. Now, you have this little piece of plastic hardware, and it slides in and locks into place. It's really simple and it's a big improvement. Previously with those hooks, you would have a hard time undoing them, especially when you have gloves on. In this case, all you have to do is just pull it down and slide it out. It is super simple. It's a big improvement. About halfway up the body, we have 4 guy line points, so you can attach your guy lines there. We have, again, 2 doors. Here's one, here's another. Each one of these doors do have a storm flap that goes over the zipper to keep water out. At the very top of these storm flaps, you can convert these into vents if you want to. Coming over to the sides of the tent, the fly is separated from the inner by a little, but luckily, OneTigris was smart. They did put a loop down in the middle of this panel here so that you can pull this out and stake it out and get better airflow. Unfortunately, there's no string attached here, no shock cord or anything like that. But luckily, you have the option, you can attach your own, which is something I highly recommend. You always want to be able to stake out the sides of your tent because that's going to promote airflow. That's going to reduce condensation. In the warmer months, that is going to keep you cooler. Now let's check on vestibule space. Without a doubt, we have a lot of vestibule space here. There's enough space. You can cook, you can have your backpack, your shoes, whatever you want to. Before I continue on with my impressions of this tent, let's go over some stats. So again, there's 2 different versions, a 1-person and a 2-person, and the OG version is also available. Remember that the new version is green and yellow, the old version is black and white. This tent has 2 doors. This is, of course, the 1-person version. When it's stored, it measures 20.5 inches by 6 inches. With the tent setup, we've already gone over the impressive dimensions. This is a good sized tent. As far as the materials go, you're looking at a silicone treated nylon, which is a 20 denier. The tent bottom features a 40 denier nylon. We have aluminum stakes, aluminum poles, and this features a 3,000 millimeter hydrostatic hit rating for the fly and the floor. The weight of the 1-person version is 3.8 pounds for the full kit. And the full retail price of the 1-person tent is only $170. As far as the big differences go between this version and the OG, the company has added the mesh layer to the doors so you can have airflow in the summertime, so you can use this tent in the summertime. With the original version, you couldn't. It would just be way too hot. It just would not work. Not unless you're camping in some very cool area or time of year. Otherwise, it was simply way too hot inside of that tent. Additionally, the company has changed the shape of this, making it a little bit taller and wider. Not only do you have more space inside of this tent, but it's also stronger. And lastly, they added the new hardware, which makes setting up this tent easier, specifically attaching the fly to the body. And it is substantially easier, folks. To continue on with my impressions of this tent, the quality looks to be excellent. I'm not seeing any loose threads, nothing like that. This looks premium. I do not see any loose threads at all. The seam tape looks really good. This is a very well made tent. Next, when it comes to the setup process, it is very easy. If you've set up any tent, you can set this up. Realistically speaking, you can easily set this up in 5 minutes. One aspect that I'm really impressed with here is size. This is like a 1.5-person tent. It's that big. This is quite a bit wider than your average 1-person tent, and that is appreciated. There's enough space inside of this tent for your sleep system, your backpack, your shoes, and so on. I love tents that are just a little bit oversized, because oftentimes when you have like a 1-person tent, they're so small that your shoulders touch the walls, which I don't like. This one here, it's certainly wide enough that you can sit up, change clothes. You can open up the door, you can cook here. You can have your gear on the inside of the tent instead of outside of the tent. If you're camping in a buggy environment, that could be very important. Where I live, in the summertime, I do not like having my gear or my shoes outside of my tent, and that's because of ticks. We have an insane amount of ticks here. Just by setting this tent up, I had one tick, a baby, crawling on my hand earlier. So no, I don't want to have any gear outside of my tent. In the wintertime, it doesn't matter that much, as long as everything in the vestibule is protected. So with that being said, for a 1-person tent, this is very impressive. This is a good size shelter that's going to fit most people. As long as you're 6 foot 4 inches and under, you can make this work. As far as appearances go, I have to say I love this tent. This looks so good. The color combination here is perfect in my opinion. We have the green and the yellow. Or if you want to say this is brown, the green and the brown. I'm not going to argue with you, it's so close. But whatever you want to call it, the green and this looks good, like really, really good. I like the previous version, the black and white, but this is extra, extra sharp. What I also find to be impressive is the weight. This is a 1.5 person size tent. It's under 4 pounds. It makes sense. This is not heavy at all for a hybrid tent. Oftentimes these hybrid tents can weigh like 5 pounds for a one person, but that's certainly not the case here. As far as the storage size goes, it's not bad. It's not going to take up a ton of space inside of your pack at all. It is perfectly sized for summertime camping and wintertime camping. As far as functionality goes, that is the most impressive aspect to this shelter. This is something that you could use in the summertime, in the fall, in the winter, and spring. All 4 seasons. In the hottest environments, this is not going to be the best tent out there because we have all of that fabric. But for those cooler environments, maybe up in the mountains, something like that, you're going to be able to get this to work. I would look at this tent as primarily a 4-season tent. In other words, a tent that you can use in the wintertime. But you can extend this because now we have mesh. We have 2 doors, 2 large mesh panels. You can definitely keep this tent cool. Because of that, you can use it in the summertime. It's not the best tent out there for summertime use, but it's not bad either. There's a lot of summertime tents that feature a ton of fabric, which you really don't want. Think of this tent here as a jack of all trades. It's going to be perfect for wintertime camping. In the summertime, it's going to be good. I will say if you're a colder natured individual, you may appreciate having the balance of fabric and mesh with this tent, and you may be able to use this fully in the summertime. I run hot, so in the summertime I like as much mesh as possible. With this tent here, I think it's going to perform well enough here in the mountains. I have a buddy, his name is Facette. He has a channel, Outdoors with V. He is colder natured than I am. He lives north of me by a couple of hours at a lower elevation, and it is substantially warmer where he lives. But he loves going out with tents that feature a ton of fabric in the summertime because he's colder natured than I am. Just keep all of that in mind as far as the use cases go for this tent here. What I'm trying to say here is that while I want a tent with as much mesh as possible because I'm very warm natured, you may not be that way. You may find that this tent here offers the perfect balance. Fabric, mesh, warm, a little bit cooler, so on and so forth. The last thing that I'll talk about concerning this tent, assuming that there's no issues with waterproofing. If there's no problems, the value of this tent is off the charts. If you're looking at this tent as a pure wintertime tent, you're not going to find, assuming there's no issues, a better tent for the money. The OG Stella was a fantastic performer in the wintertime, and this should be no different. The OG Stella was one of the best bargains, one of the best values out there as far as wintertime tents go. In fact, it really had no competition. I should say it has no competition. For around $200, try to find a tent that strong. Try to find a tent with those features. You're not going to. One person winter tents usually go for $500 to $600 to $700. 2-person tents, you can add $200 or $300 to that. That's one of the reasons why I'm so excited about this tent and also the 2-person version. These tents should be just as good as the OG Stella in wintertime camping, but now you can use them in the summertime, and that's huge. Over the years here on the channel, as I've reviewed tents, I'm sure you all have noticed that I've been pushing outdoor companies to develop tents that you can use in cooler conditions as well as warmer. And finally, we're beginning to see these companies listening. These companies, they're listening to the feedback, they're listening to good ideas, and they're implementing these ideas. So now we have this Stella. I complained with the OG version that you could not use it in the summertime. There was no mesh. You either had to have the doors fully open or fully shut. Now you don't have to. You do not have to compromise. And because of that, you will be more comfortable inside of this tent because you can adjust the airflow going into it. At the same time, you can use this in warmer conditions. What I'm saying is that you can buy one tent to cover all of your camping needs, and that's so important. There's no reason why you should have to purchase 3 or 4 tents so that you can go camping all year long. A single tent that covers all of your bases. And folks, we're finally getting to that point. We're beginning to see these new tent designs with these more modern materials. And what we're seeing is very impressive. Just like with what I'm seeing here with the Stella, the new Stella. This is very, very impressive. With all of that being said, folks, I am done for now. This tent is going to go into testing right now. In fact, in a few days, I will have this out and it's going to be quite warm. So we will push this tent to its limits as far as temperature ranges go. And we'll see how comfortable I am inside of it. I do have high hopes for this tent. I think it's going to perform really well. With that being said, everyone, I purchased this tent. I don't care if you buy it or not. What I'm doing is sharing information. What I'm doing is sharing my passion for the outdoors. I love outdoor gear. And I'm glad to see companies listening to feedback and also taking the good ideas and implementing those. Way to go, OneTigris. This looks very, very good. This is very promising. Coming up soon, I will have a preview of the 2-person version, so stay tuned. Make sure to comment down below, share your thoughts. What do you all think about the new Stella? If you have the original Stella, how much do you love that tent? Comment down below. Again, for myself, that was one of the best tents that I've ever tested. It is truly fantastic. Make sure to sound off concerning the color scheme. Do you like it? Also, what do you think it is? Is it green and brown or green and yellow? Green and yellow, in my opinion. Anyways, folks, if you enjoyed this episode, if you found it helpful, hit the thumbs up. Oh yeah. Until next time, everyone, take care, be well, strength and honor. Bye for now.